Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I'd like to share with you an interesting game played between Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky on the white end and Leela Chess Zero ID 11248. This was a 5-2 blitz game played on December 23rd, 2018. It was the final game of a little mini match played between these two on leechess.org. They went at it for about 2 hours, and this one here was a knight odds game, so Leela Chess Zero began without a king's knight. Now, the game itself isn't of great interest to me, but I'm still going to share it with you. Still pretty cool to see how, one might try to play the beginning of a game down a knight. Apparently, Leela is a fan of the Caro-Kann defense when playing without a king's knight. Anyhow, just some light comments throughout this game. The main focus, the main reason why I'm sharing this game with you is to highlight the endgame, which, if I'm recalling correctly, Daniel himself even described as brilliant. So, yeah, this sequence that begins at move 40 is really something. Now, the b4 move by Naroditsky is an on-purpose, giving up a pawn in order to create an open line. We, of course, do have opposite sides castling, so good strategy. White is still in the driver's seat, of course. Knight for pawn. And eventually, we have a nice spot for the knight. No pins on the b file anymore. Gets simplified. Pair of rooks remain, and the queens are now gone. We enter a foot race. White's trying to undermine the structure. That's shot down. h5 by black. And foot race on the queen side. Eventually, we enter 2-1. No time to save this guy on g6. White hunts that down. A full piece now for white, but the black pawns continue to march, and eventually, white will have to, considered best here is knight to c4, but white dives in, creates a passed pawn of his own. White has to give up the rook for the pawn. But there's now a big question for black, how exactly to stop this passed h-pawn. Let's see. Move 40 is the big moment in the game right here. Now, I was able to catch this game live, and when I saw the combination, I immediately thought of Leopold Mitrofanov's most celebrated composition. Now, I don't want to give away what composition that is. If you haven't seen it already, be sure to check the pinned comment to this video. I'll have a link to that video. It's really something special. And, I'll feel free to treat this as some endgame study, because I believe one is produced right here from this game. So it's black to move. Big question here, how exactly are you going to cope with this passed h-pawn 2 steps away from queening? Black to move, what would you do? Okay, well, first of all, let me just note that the attempt to play king b7 and rook to a8 is not working because knight here and pawn here, it's winning for white. So that's no good. So what's the plan? Well, first knight e4, which at the moment does not seem to do anything at all about this passer. Naroditsky presses. And now we have a check, king h2, and knight takes f2. Now, again, I can't help but think about Leopold Mitrofanov's composition. Do check that video out that I'm referring to in the pinned comment. White now is able to have a queen, let's just say, with check. King b7 is the follow-up. You have to go there. Going here allows a knight check, and then there's queen checks available. King to b7. Now what? What should white do? There are no knight checks, and there are no good king checks. Even though white is up a queen and a knight versus a rook, what is white going to do about the threat of checkmate or the threat to simply skewer the king to the queen. You can't save both. White has to save the king, of course. Any queen move without check is going to run into checkmate. So you have to give the queen back. First, black allows the promotion with check, ducks, puts the king on b7. There are no good follow-up checks, and we'll get the queen back one move later. G4, or two moves later. White plays g4. There's now a square for the king, and you have to allow the skewer. The queen is won back, and we enter this simplified ending where Leela knows, well, I could sacrifice the rook for the pawn, and this resulting endgame will be a draw. The idea here, if white is to attempt to win, you should try to blockade the pawn and then work with the king and this knight to kind of box the king into a corner and then finally run with the other knight to give checkmate. But this position here is a draw. As soon as this knight moves, this pawn should bolt, and that's what happens in this game. Something that might be worth noting, if this pawn was back one step and this knight was right here blockading, that would be a winning position. If it does enter an ending where it is two knights and a king versus king, white cannot force checkmate. And so this game just continues for a little bit more. Again, as soon as the f3 knight moves, Leela knows that that pawn should bolt. White takes it, and just a move later, gives up a knight. This is a drawn position. But really, the star moment of this game was move 40. I don't want to give away what exactly it was about Leopold Mitrofanov's composition that, made me think about this game right here, the ending that occurred in this game, but do check that out. It's really something special. So, what a cool sequence to see from a game. These compositions, they're made up, they're not from any one game, and to see actually one that was produced from a game, pretty neat, to me at least. Anyhow, hopefully you enjoyed it, and feel free to leave any comments in the comment section below. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.